This episode of Dispatches from Planet Albany is brought to you with support by New York State United Teachers, which represents more than 600,000 educators and school-related professionals in New York. Dispatches is also supported by the public affairs firm O'Donnell & Associates. For more information, check out o'donnellsolutions.com.
This episode is also brought to you by Citizens for Affordable Rates. New York's car insurance costs are nearly double the national average, and state lawmakers must take action to make driving more affordable. Learn more at citizensforaffordablerate.com.
The reason why we don't get an opportunity to get our bills through committee is because they're blocked. There's a thing called a hold. And sometimes even when you sit in committee and you ask for an explanation, you don't get a proper explanation. You don't follow the Roberts Rules of Order within those committees. So it's a real mess around this place.
I've also declared war on potholes, so here's the first shot across the bow.
Well, as you know, with Planet Albany, there's always something that makes the planet turn.
And it's this amazing view of D.C., and Eddie Vedder comes out. And he goes, "You have a cigarette?" And I've never smoked in my life, but if I had, I wish that was the moment.
And this strategy takes us from potholes to knotholes.
I would like to say it was a pleasure, Mr. Kim. But I'm on the road.
I'm David Lombardo, and this is Dispatches from Planet Albany, a podcast about power and policy in New York. And on this episode, we're diving into the world of energy costs, which is the topic on the minds of most ratepayers this winter. So it's on the minds of politicians who are offering a range of responses depending on their party affiliation or preferred energy sources. The result is a cluttered mess of promises that can be hard to cut through, which is why we're checking in with Marie French, the energy and environment reporter at the Capitol for Politico New York. And while we've got her, we're also going to talk about the possibility that Governor Kathy Hochul may try to insert a rollback of the CLCPA language into a final budget deal. So, Marie, I want to start with energy prices. GOP gubernatorial candidate Bruce Blakeman is out on the campaign trail saying he'll cut utility bills in half, and there's a group of Assembly Democrats who are out with their own plan. Is there anything on the table, though, that has, A, a realistic chance of being implemented anytime soon, and B, would have a substantive impact on what ratepayers are actually paying?
Yeah, so it's definitely a tough problem that policymakers are grappling with. Energy costs are rising. I think people will be even more concerned as they get their bills from the past, couple weeks, couple months. A lot of that is driven by natural gas prices are high, demand is high, usage is high. So all of those things are sort of coming together in a really concerning way for people who are going to struggle to pay their bills. And yes, you're seeing everybody sort of, I call it the all of the above affordability solution approach, right? Since we have all of the above energy. It's tough to say what near-term options policymakers have. So the upstate Democrats are calling for, returning some money immediately to ratepayers that is, sitting in utility accounts. Unclear that could be, a small bump, it's like $500 million or something, I think they said. There's, we use more Reggie funds for making other programs less expensive. So a lot of it seems to be shuffling money around, which could provide some short-term relief, Like
rob Peter to pay Paul?
I guess, I think you could view it that way. I think maybe some groups might be concerned that this is rating energy efficiency funds or rating clean energy funds and doing that. Their other proposal was pausing taxes on, utility costs. State taxes seem to be a fairly small amount. Local property taxes, as you know, are a pretty big driver in some areas.
What about this unspent NYSERDA money that Bruce Blakeman refers to? I think he talks about $2 billion. Is there a big pot of money, and is anyone actually talking about using that for some sort of ratepayer relief?
Yeah, so that was first brought up, I think, by Senate Republicans or some of the Republicans in the legislature anyway. NYSERDA says a lot of that money is already committed through contracts or through, planned programming. So they're certainly maybe not super excited about the idea of giving up that money that they're administering. It's all collected from ratepayers under the authority of the Public Service Commission. They approve that collection and spending.
So sticking with GOP gubernatorial candidate Bruce Blakeman, you've reported that he is allegedly going to spend $700,000 on an ad blaming the governor for high utility costs. You asked him for details on his quote-unquote plan and got back some of the greatest hits from the Republicans, including what I mentioned with regards to NYSERDA, as well as cutting utility taxes that you referred to. He also talked about repealing mandates and various versions of what I'll call drill baby drill, although I don't think increasing energy supply is something that you can do in the short term. Let's imagine a world where Bruce Blakeman was governor right now and for some reason could push his agenda through a Democratic legislature. Would any of that have a significant impact, or is most of that stuff around the margins or longer term when we talk about something like increasing supply?
His promise is he will cut your utility bill in half. So
sounds good.
50% cut to your utility bill. Not clear over what time frame, how long that would last, where the money for that would come from or where the cuts would come from. So I was actually looking at some numbers, and I know I said don't ask me about any numbers because I don't have them in front of me, but residential collections for utilities are almost $6 billion annually, right? So that's $6 billion. So if you're going to cut that in half, you have to find $3 billion. Okay, NYSERDA has $2 billion maybe that you could take. So that's 1 year. But then NYSERDA wants to do all its programming still. I guess you could eliminate that entirely. And I mean, Blakeman has, a lot of focus, as Democrats do right now, on the supply side of the bill, right, which is a portion of your bill that you're paying for the commodity costs, natural gas, electricity, mainly produced by natural gas. So his idea to, have more gas production, more pipelines, more fracking, maybe he thinks that will bring down costs. But whether that could do it in the short term and really result in a 50% reduction in your bill in the near term seems hard to grasp.
What about the issue of how we got here? Because depending on who I bring into the studio on any given day, I'm going to get a different response for what is driving costs. And some are going to point to subsidies for fossil fuels. Others are going to say renewable energy is super expensive. Other people are going to say you've got this tax, this mandate. Is there a clear reason why New York energy costs are the way they are, or is it just a combination of all of that, and we've pretty much got a circular firing squad, and we need to look inwards? Marie, every one of us holds some accountability for this.
The all of the above solution lies within us.
All of the above blame.
New York isn't special. I hate to tell everyone this, but New York is not special. Energy costs are rising across the country, around the globe. I mean, we're competing now on a global scale for gas, right?
Sure.
Where the United States is exporting natural gas on a scale we've never seen before. So prices are rising. Global competition for that fuel is rising. New York's, system, the Public Service Commission chair kind of pointed to we talked about a little bit about the supply side, but the other part of your bill is the stuff utilities control, the poles, the wires, the pipelines, the substations, the people, the union labor working on those systems. So those are another part of the cost. And the Public Service Commission chair kind of said, New York has a really old system because a lot of this stuff happened, centuries ago, decades ago.
I remember when the Iroquois were putting up those first utility poles in the early 1700s.
Yeah. Way back when. So part of it is the aging system, right? So you're having to invest in that. You're having to accommodate, it's true. The system has to be upgraded to accommodate distributed energy, which is like solar on your house or solar, out there, and wind projects. It has to be upgraded to accommodate your EV. It has to be upgraded to accommodate these school bus fleets that are going to be electrified. It has to be upgraded to accommodate all electric buildings. So those are costs that are coming down the pipe. It's hard to say that, the majority of it is clean energy policies, right? It seems that the majority of it is maintaining that system, keeping it up to a basic standard of safety and reliability.
Well, I want to turn to the budget, and specifically what's not in the budget, at least right now, but may possibly end up in the final budget, and that's statutory language that would roll back some of the goals in the 2019 Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, which are clearly causing some headaches for the governor, at least in court right now, where she's trying to go against the law. We'll see how the court system ends up ruling on this. But we saw when the governor tried to do something like this on a smaller scale a couple of years ago as it came to methane emissions, and they trotted out Doreen and Basil and let them float this idea of, hey, why don't we count things a different way? It might give us some more breathing room. That got shot down. You've reported, though, that the governor is still interested in revisiting this in budget conversations. So I guess I'm curious, is there a world in which you see this actually making it into a final budget? Is it something that the governor drops on the table on March 31st? Because it wasn't part of the 30-day amendments. So where is this right now from your perspective?
Let me pull out my crystal ball and consult it.
Sure.
I don't know. I feel like this is something she could punt. She could just punt on it, let the court case play out, appeal, if it goes in her favor, if it doesn't go in her favor, appeal, whatever, and run out the clock until
post-election.
I mean, you have some competitive House races, right?
Such a cynical worldview from an energy and environmental reporter.
It's just that, history kind of points in this direction, that a lot of decisions and announcements on energy get held until after.
Congestion pricing, fracking, probably more that you're actually aware of and I'm not, but I imagine the list goes on and on.
Yeah, it's something she could decide to punt on. But then again, she's sort of riding pretty high right now. She's feeling pretty good politically. She's getting a lot of kudos from industry and some, moderate groups and lawmakers about her all of the above approach. So maybe she decides that this is a good time to just buckle down and tinker with the 2019 climate law that she has repeatedly said, I didn't approve it,
If we ever find out who was in power back then, we're going to have to really tell them.
Get Jim Malatras out here.
Yeah, whoever was lieutenant governor back then, I hope they spoke out against it.
It's really interesting to see the evolution, right? You look back at when she first took office and cheered the decision to reject permits for repowering two downstate gas plants, one of which is now has filed to retire as well. And now she's sort of being like, we need to repower these gas plants. She was the one who cheered the rejection of the permits, but it was also a different time, of course.
Life comes at you pretty fast. But speaking of the idea of a different time, when I think about the legislature and the conditions in 2019 that led to the adoption of the CLCPA, I am very skeptical that that could be adopted in its current form in 2026. But at the same time, I don't think there's the votes in the legislature if you were to bring up, say, a standalone bill, and when I say in the legislature, I mean in the Democratic majorities, to repeal, say, the CLCPA. And so I wonder how big of a headache that is going to be in, say, budget negotiations if the governor did try to prioritize this. Obviously, you've highlighted some of the people who are outspoken, who say, never in a million years should we change this. But I imagine you also hear a lot of people privately, like those upstate assembly Dems, who maybe not so privately are like, yeah, sure, let's revisit that language. Let's make something that's more reflective of the landscape that we're in 2026. So do you have a sense of where the legislature is? And again, when I say legislature, the Democratic majorities.
See, it's like you missed my preview of this issue back in November.
Well, it was
when
probably
me
Politico
and my
Pro.
colleague, it was, Democrats split on climate law. So yeah, there are elements within the Democratic majority who would be comfortable, and we're not talking about repealing, right? Nobody is like, we can just get rid of the whole thing. It's sort of tinkering around the edges. Do we change the accounting method so it seems like we're farther along and like we could achieve it more easily? Do we push out the deadlines? Do we, give the executive more flexibility? I don't think any Democrats are talking about a wholesale repeal, and there are elements within the upstate Democrats, some even some Long Island folks and sort of suburban people are comfortable with having that conversation. But it would be tough. I think it would be difficult, especially with some of the more environmentally focused, climate-focused lawmakers.
Some challenges need someone who simply won't quit. Modern advocacy brings tenacity, strategy, and unwavering follow-through to every client it serves. Learn more at modernadvocacyllc.com. Well, based on that example I brought up with the methane emissions, do you have a sense of how this governor would advance something like this? If we're going to see it really be pushed actively, should we be keeping an eye out for like a story dropping in Politico New York? Is it going to be more subtle than that? How do you think something like that rolls out?
If given the track record on this issue, I would expect to hear about it when they slide it across the table and then the lawmakers freak out about it. I don't know. I don't know how else you would. I don't know that this is something they would want to promote in particular. But hey, if you want to leak this to me, please feel free.
You can find Marie's contact information online. Sticking with the budget, though, anything else interesting going on in the budget or the budget hearings? Because when I've been looking at this, I would say none of it seems too robusto or that interesting. But maybe there's stuff that's captivated you?
On my sort of area, it is kind of a quiet-ish budget. I mean, I'm interested to sort of see where this water money goes. The environmentalists were thrilled to hear more money for water, and then they sort of got the details, and now they're like, more money for water for development. And that's not quite as thrilling to the average environmental advocate, it seems. Pretty exciting for the home builders and the business community, though.
So this month, the state's electric grid monitor, the NYSO, had a governance meeting where they explored what their planning process could look like moving forward. It appeared to be a robust discussion about how to assess the future energy demands. Can you explain a little more about what's going on there? And am I safe in assuming that people are invested in this because they think it will impact the type of energy development being promoted in the future? Or is there another reason why people are so invested in this?
Money.
Elaborate.
So what's and this is getting a little ahead of myself because I haven't finished my reporting on this issue, but
give us a tease then.
Basically, the grid operator, the New York Independent System Operator, is worried. An entity can't be worried. The people who run the NYSO are worried about the grid's ability to handle some of the extreme weather that we're seeing. They raised some concerns this past summer. They raised concerns about the winter cold snap that we just had and, how old fossil fuel units weren't available, renewables weren't available because all the solar panels were covered in snow, that kind of thing. So
I was going to say, I suggested to the NYSO that we have kids on school days when the school is canceled. We send them out there with shovels, and so that's under consideration now if, we're looking for solutions long term.
I think that's brilliant, Dave. It's really great that we have you.
No problem.
So with this concern about reliability, they've been raising this for years. Basically, they want to change the way they plan for reliability so that it would, in theory, be easier to solicit solutions. So that means, the NYSO could be like, hey, we don't have in our baseline, forecast a reliability shortfall. But if you look at these, 2 or 3 scenarios together that could happen, a bunch of the fossil fleet retires, electrification grows more rapidly than we expect, data centers come online in greater numbers, or actually just as they've filed. But so if, those 3 things happen, we'd have this big shortfall in year 9, year 8, year 10. Let's do something about it. They want that ability to say, well, in the base case, as they call it, there isn't a reliability shortfall. Looking at other, factors, other scenarios that could all happen at the same time, there's a big worry that we won't have enough electricity.
And so is the concern then from, say, environmentalists that if we highlight this problem or say there's a problem when maybe they feel there isn't one, or that it can be solved on the longer term or whatever, that we're going to pivot more into fossil fuels based on these readings?
That's kind of their, I would say that's a pretty fair characterization of their concerns, that like this just incentivizes fossil fuel development in the future. There's a couple like additional issues, right? There's the money issue. So everyone at the NYSO has a financial stake in the energy system, essentially. So another concern that environmentalists have raised is this idea of gold plating the system, right? If we're planning for these extreme potential scenarios that have, maybe a low probability, maybe a high probability, then we will be over-investing in the system. And who pays for the system?
Is it the ratepayers?
Yes.
I feel like that's the safe. Anytime there's an energy question, it's pretty safe that it's going to be the ratepayers. If you get a Democrat in D.C., sometimes it can be the federal government that's helping out, but otherwise I always go ratepayers.
Ratepayers is a good choice.
Thank you.
So it shows up on your bill, right? So they're raising that concern that, like, are we overbuilding the system? There was some conversation where it seemed that some utility folks were raising, like, that maybe this is really more a role for the state to figure this out. This is, and one person described it as sort of like the NYSO trying to take all this additional power, like expanding their power and authority over the power system, pun intended.
Do state policymakers want that authority? I would assume they wouldn't want to touch this type of controversial issue with a 10-foot pole. That way they can say, hey, it's not us. It's the independent monitor that is heading us down this road, and they're above reproach. How dare you question them?
That is kind of the strategy they've taken. I mean, you saw with the state energy plan, they pointed a lot to the NYSO reports. And there's a reason for that, right? The NYSO is the entity, aside from the governance process, which involves the stakeholders. These are experts in operating the system. They see it every day. They're like, we got to meet the demand every minute, every hour. So yeah, I think that's a good point. The other thing I'd say is that this is something that state policymakers actually are not going to be able to avoid having some role in solving, because the reason that a lot of gas developers cite for not wanting to invest in New York and do this, like repowering or propose these repowerings that the NYSO and kind of the Hochul administration are saying are needed, is because of the climate law and the lack of clarity about what zero emissions means in 2040.
Well, lastly, on the NYSO front, from my perspective, which, as I've already probably made clear, involves dipping in, dipping out, and so I don't have a good handle on it, I feel like there has been increased politicalization of the NYSO and its work over the last year. You mentioned how they've been utilized by the state energy plan as the rationale for some of the direction they've been pushing policy in. And I am a little surprised by the green groups that seem to be going after them, because I've always viewed them as this independent arbiter, this just the facts, ma'am organization. But from your perspective, is this the same type of grumbling that you've heard in the past, and it's just finally getting louder, and the rum-dums like me, who only occasionally dip into this world, are finally hearing it?
I think it's a little louder recently, in part because the NYSO is kind of undertaking this. It is a very significant change that they're seeking to make to how they plan and their reliability processes. The NYSO is definitely not been immune to criticism. The Cuomo administration slammed them for raising concerns about the need for additional transmission, and then more transmission was built. They got a lot of heat as they were trying to figure out how exactly to compensate renewables for their contributions to the capacity market. They got a lot of flack from a lot of different angles. They've gotten, there's been disagreement over, I don't think we even want to get into that, over what unit should be the peaking unit to
the only unit I know is the big unit, Randy Johnson.
Set some of the pricing mechanisms. Should it be a 2-hour battery? Should it be a 4-hour battery? Should it be a fossil fuel plant?
But it sounds like all of those past issues maybe resulted in everybody having concerns with the NISO. They were taking it from all sides, whereas now, again, my limited perspective and the limited voices in my inbox, I only feel like I'm getting it from the green groups that are pissed at them.
I don't think that's super unusual for some of these issues. This is also like part of their process, is this kind of robust debate over what they're going to do. It'll be interesting to see what they ultimately settle on doing. I mean, they have to get approval from all these like committees. They have to get approval from the board of directors. I think it's a tariff change, so I think it has to go to FERC, but you should ask the NISO about that.
Before I let you go, any issue that you feel like is not getting enough attention, anything like maybe you've reported on and you are like, why is this not getting picked up? People need to recognize that this is a bigger deal, or are we all doing a great job of synthesizing your reporting in our follow-up reporting?
I just want people to be more precise and honest when talking about what's driving your utility bill right now.
Is it liquid natural gas that's being shipped in from other states in trucks that they just drive around in New York City?
No, that's illegal.
Oh. So when people say that's happening, we shouldn't take them at their face value?
Compressed natural gas is allowed.
Mm-hmm.
Liquefied natural gas is banned in New York City.
This isn't a potato situation?
Maybe to some people it is. Maybe I'm being too pedantic.
I don't think so. I think the idea for accuracy in reporting is definitely a fair expectation. Accuracy and honesty in how people present issues, that might be a bridge too far.
I should lower my standards.
Well, we'll see about revisiting those in the Climate Leadership Community Protection Act. Marie, thank you so much for making the time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave. It's awesome to chat with you.
Mr. Tague on the motion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I thought you were going to forget me again.